Hello and welcome to the Auto Guide Show. This week we drive a couple of Kias. There's a lot of news from Honda, and we talk to someone who is quite the expert on Ford. But first, a word from our sponsor. Picture this. You're halfway through a DIY car fix, tools scattered everywhere, and boom, you realize you're missing a part. It's okay, because you know whatever it is, it's on eBay. They've got everything: brakes, headlights, cold air intakes, whatever you need, and it's guaranteed to fit, which means no more crossing your fingers and hoping you ordered the right thing. All the parts you need, at the prices you'll love, guaranteed fit every time. eBay, things people love. All right, so let's get right to it. You may notice if you're watching, or for those listening, I'll let you know, Kyle's away on vacation this week, so I will be doing the news and reviews solo, but Greg will join us later. So kicking things off, let's talk about the Kia Sportage. So this is the 26 model that I got to drive, which is the refresh. So it has new styling on the front and rear bumper, as well as the front end, and inside there's some new trim bits and colors and tech, but it's pretty much the same vehicle, which isn't a bad thing because this is one of our favorite. I don't really think you could call them compact anymore. They've grown, but it's sort of the bread and butter, basically the most important family class now. It's the one that used to be dominated by mid-size sedans, but now it's these compact-ish SUVs, RAV4, CRVs, the Sportage. So the reason we drove this, besides the refresh, is this is the first time in quite a while we've driven one that wasn't a hybrid with the entry-level engine. And the vehicle with the refresh is still really good. I'll stick to all the good points first. So it's more comfort orientated. It can handle okay. It's not a performance vehicle. None in this class really are, but the Mazdas do have a bit of a sporty edge. This doesn't, but it does maintain grip well in corners, well enough for what you'd want to do with 4 people in the vehicle. And speaking of which, the rear seat is very accommodating. This is definitely a 4-adult vehicle if need be, or 2 adults and 3 kids fit without problem. There's a lot of storage in the back. There's so much technology in the vehicle that comes in the higher trims like I had, yet the pricing still undercuts a lot of the competition if you go feature for feature. The big issue with this specific vehicle is that engine. So it's a 2.5 liter 4-cylinder, and it makes 187 horsepower. That's pretty much right around where all of its competitors are, like the Forester and the Mazda CX-50 and the Honda CR-V and the RAV4. The RAV4 makes a little bit more power, but generally they're all there. But in the Kia, it feels slower than all of those competitors. And if you do a little stopwatch testing, it is slower, anywhere from a half second to a full second compared to all of the other vehicles I just mentioned. I don't really know why. I don't know if it's a gearing thing, if the power is maybe very peaky, or it's just not what's quite listed. I'm not sure, but around town, it feels strained. And then on the highway, if you need to do any sort of passing maneuver, it's got the 8-speed automatic's got to kick down a couple gears. It kind of just puts a damper on an otherwise really good package. Now the engine is smooth and it's vibration free, so that's nice, but because you're always having to rev it out, it doesn't get noisy. It's just always up in its upper RPMs, which of course produce more sound. Basically, whoops, wrong vehicle. Basically, the Sportage is a great little SUV, but spend a little bit of extra money to get the hybrid. Little bit of money may be a stretch. It is a couple $1,000s more, but you'll get an easier vehicle to drive, one with more power, and one that's going to actually save a bit of money as time goes by because it requires less fuel. All right, so moving on to the next item. Kyle drove the new Kia EV6 GT-Line, the 2025, and guess what? It's another Kia that had a refresh. This is one of my favorite EVs in this class. We did a big EV shootout not too long ago, and Kyle picked the Ioniq 5 as his favorite, and I took its corporate twin, the EV6, because of its wagon looks. And reading Kyle's review, basically, much like the Sportage, it just improves on areas that were already good and makes the necessary changes to keep up with the competition. So the looks have always been a little controversial, and the new nose and rear end, I'm not sure if I like the new one better than the old one. I think I like the old one better, but I see this is trying to blend in more with the brand's other SUVs. But the drive and range and power, that's what really wins me over. And it sounds like that hasn't changed. So yeah, that's good, because like I said, it was already one of my favorites. So another car that we got to drive this week was the Mini Cooper S Convertible. Yes, I think I got that right. So this is the mid-level Mini convertible, because there's the regular convertible with the 2-liter turbo, then there's this S with the more potent 2-liter turbo, and then of course there's the John Cooper Works. So this was always sort of the sweet spot of the lineup, and this year it actually makes more power. It's up over 200 horsepower. May not sound like much, but it's good because the car is also a little bigger, a little heavier, so basically it offsets the size gain. It's still small. It's still almost 2 feet shorter than a Civic, but Minis and everything else in the world keep growing from generation to generation. The nice thing about it is the front seat passengers have so much space and comfort, and the way the engineers have designed the windshield on the highway, you can have the roof down and there's like no wind buffeting. Now the rear seat accommodates smaller adults and children, no problem. Taller and larger adults might not really fit too well back there, but on the highway, there's a lot of wind that gets back there. You probably want to have the side windows up. But I mean, this is probably going to be a two-person, one-person car most of the time. And like I said up front, it's great. And the other thing that really surprised me is how crisp and clear the sound system is. Even at highway speeds, I didn't have to turn the volume up a lot, which in some convertibles, you have to really crank it, and then everything starts to get just kind of muffled and distorted. Here, it was so clear, and it sounded just like it would if the roof was up. I mean, there was obviously some wind noise in the background, but I was surprised, and I think any other maker of a convertible needs to kind of look at this car and see what they've done, because it is one of, if not the best, audio experiences I've had in a vehicle. And I think that's important because that's sort of what the Mini's about. It's about youthfulness and fun. And in the past, the Cooper S was sort of the youthful, fun, racy car with its hood scoop and its exposed exhaust in the center and all of its little barks and pops. And that's all gone. It's kind of matured in that sense, and the youthful funness has really switched more to a tech side. So like that audio system I mentioned, and then there's these drive modes that are like curated moods that you can pick through. It's a Mini experience. It's in pretty much all their models, and it changes the screen and lighting, and can even change the engine sound that's pumped in, and of course it'll change the way the vehicle drives. And in go-kart, it still is a fun car to drive, even if it's missing some of the sporty bits. But we've mentioned this reviewing Minis before. Not only is the manual transmission gone, but the dual clutch automatic doesn't have any sort of manual control. There's no paddle shifters, there's no center gear stack you can use to change the gears. You just fully rely on the vehicle. So Mini's really kind of getting away from, I wouldn't say they're getting away from fun to drive, because if you push it, and the more I drove it on the week, I realized how fun they still are, but it's just not as much user engagement as much as just kind of going along for the fun ride with the great sound system and all the cool tech. So it's not the Mini Cooper S Convertible I remember, but it's still a really good product, and Mini knows their customer base, and this is probably what they're looking for. So moving on to a whole bunch of Honda news. First up, we have the Prelude, the upcoming hybrid coupe from Honda. Has been confirmed that there will be Type R bits on the vehicle. So basically the Civic Type R suspension, brakes, and some of that hardware will come underneath. Now it's still going to have the Civic hybrid powertrain, but we don't know exactly what that means, if it's going to be about the same 200 horsepower as the Civic hybrid. I'd imagine they're going to make some tweaks because they need to make it more. So I don't know. I'd hope for at least 220, but we'll see. But the fact that the chassis is going to be excellent is great news. And I know some people are still going to complain it doesn't have the full Type R engine and everything, which I get. The Prelude was always a front-wheel drive vehicle that surprised a lot of rear-wheel drive cars back in its day, but part of that was how excellent the handling and chassis was, and it sounds like this car will have it. And until we know exactly what's going to be under the engine, I won't make a comment. But Honda's also said it's going to have a more natural feeling when it comes to gear changes, because this will have probably the ECVT equivalent that Honda makes. So anyway, until we know specific drivetrain bits, I'll hold judgment on there, but it's good to hear that the rest of the car is going to be very performance orientated. So sticking with Honda, great news about that sporty coupe, bad news about one of my favorite surprising sort of I would say under the radar, best hidden secret sports sedans has been discontinued. The Acura TLX Type S is done. Well, the whole TLX is done, but that includes the Type S, which I've always liked. I drove the last 2 years of it. The all-wheel drive system did so well with that Turbo 6 to get the rear end to rotate and kind of mask its front wheel drive platform and bones. It made great sounds. I liked the way it looked. Yes, the trackpad and interior bits drove me nuts, but everything else I really liked. And it's just sad to you that another sedan is dead. It seems like every month another sedan bites the dust, and soon we have no cars left. There's going to be a couple sports cars and coupes, and everything else can be SUVs. And hopefully SUV fatigue kicks in soon, and people will get over this and get back into regular cars. And speaking of cars, Ferrari has trademarked the name 849 Testarossa, which would kind of lead to some speculation that maybe the iconic name's coming back, maybe in sort of a one-off special edition or a low volume run, sort of like with Lamborghini and the Countach not too long ago. The name Testarossa is still trademark, but the fact that they've trademarked the secondary name is very interesting because they fought a long legal battle to claim rights over the name, which they have now. So yeah, it'd be cool if one of their current sports cars had some Testarossa styling cues and they brought the name back, but it'd be even cooler if they made a flat out Testarossa. But we'll have to wait and see what this trademark means. It may just be simply holding on to their intellectual property. But again, adding the 849 is the part that makes us really curious. So that wraps up the news and reviews on the Auto Guide show brought to you by eBay Motors. We will take a bit of a longer break, but when we come back, I will be back with Greg to talk to our special guest, which will be very interesting. And then Colum will be on to talk F1, and then Greg will come back to wrap the show up and talk about what's ahead. So until then, we'll see you in a couple minutes. Picture this. You're in the garage, your favorite room in the house, and you're tuning up your engine with parts you found on eBay. Every piece is just locking perfectly into place. You step back to admire your work, hands covered in grease, and because you're committed to driving that thing further than the odometer can handle, you start to think to yourself, you know what, I could probably also use some new brakes, some shocks and struts, and this baby deserves a new air filter. So you head right back to eBay. You can find any part you need there, it's unreal. From wipers and headlights to cold air intakes, exhaust systems, and even that turbo you've had on your mind. eBay is the stocked garage of your dreams, and you've got eBay Guaranteed Fit. Because eBay knows DIY fixes can be major, and mods are always intense, so you need to know that these parts guaranteed to fit every time before you dive in wrench first. And in the off chance you order a part and it doesn't fit, send it back, simple as that. You know what you love more than the car itself is driving it. You're serious when it comes to engine maintenance, and you're locked in when you're headed into a build. And that's exactly why you start with eBay, minor fix or complete overhaul. You want to get your ride back on the road, and you've got eBay Guaranteed Fit. So eBay created My Garage, where all you have to do is add your ride's info and get the exact parts that fit. When you see the green check, you're a click away from that part clicking perfectly into place. So now that you know all that, imagine standing at that open garage door looking at your car you love more than anything, knowing that anything is possible. Whether it's keeping it on the road forever or turning it into something that's never been on the road before. Because with eBay, your garage just got a whole lot bigger. Get all the parts you need at prices you love, guaranteed to fit every time. eBay, things people love. All right, welcome back, everyone. This week's special guest is actually a good friend of mine. Tony, if you could just introduce yourself and what you're up to these days.
My name's Tony Andrury. I run a YouTube channel. It's called Tony's Fords and Mustangs. That started when I sold my company back in 2021. I was a very hands-on owner of my company. I spent a lot of time there, and everything got done around the house relatively quickly in retirement. I needed something to do. I've been an automotive person in the car since the age of 13, and I've always liked Ford and Ford products. So I thought, I'm going to start a YouTube channel. So that started in September of 2021 as just kind of a hobby, and I'm enjoying myself. I'm connecting with people. I'm learning a lot, and so it just keeps going. I'm up to almost 25,000 subscribers now, and it is a hobby for me. So I don't consider myself a content creator or a professional. I guess I'm a content creator, but I do this because I like vehicles. I like cars, and that's
Fords.
what I concentrate on.
Yeah, in your channel and growth and everything's been completely organic. And we've talked on this podcast many times about how hard it is to get into YouTube. You could have fantastic content, but it doesn't mean you're going to connect with an audience. And you're one of the few semi-recent success stories. So that's been great. It helps
Thank
knowing
you.
everything about Fords and you know your audience and who you're talking to. Quick, how many Mustangs have you owned?
Oh boy, I've owned over 1,000 cars. I got my first car when I was 13 years old. I traded a Schwinn 10-speed and that was a Toyota. It was actually a Corolla that didn't run when I got it. And but Mustangs, I'm going to say 25-ish, something like that. I mean, I've been fortunate enough to know a deal when I see it, and I seem to buy a lot of these vehicles under market. I stumble into them for one reason or another. Get them running, get them going, drive them for a little bit, and then somebody offers me way more than I paid for it, and the car goes, and I'm back looking for another vehicle. And that's happened to me multiple times over my lifetime. Somewhat lucky in that respect. I just stumble into these deals. Not all of them been Fords. You know, I've owned AMCs and Chryslers and Chevys and Pontiacs, mostly domestic cars though. That's kind of where I've been at. But I've had, and probably like everybody, I've had really good luck with Ford products. So that's kind of where I've gone back to time and time again. Not that there's anything wrong with a Chevrolet or a Pontiac, but the ones I've owned just haven't been that kind to me. So that's why, and I think that's pretty much everybody's experience. If you have a good experience with a brand, you go back to it. So, and that's
if you
how.
don't, you run away. Yeah, and I mean, it's not just how you said the deals and the old ones. You usually have a nicer, newer daily. Like when I met you, you had I don't know the year, but the Mach 1, the New Edge Mach 1. Is that right?
Yeah, I had an 03 Mach 1. I've always had an older vehicle just because that's what I grew up with. I grew up in the malaise era of cars, and you had that big gap of performance from, I'm going to say 73 till really the Grand National came back out. I've owned 3 Grand Nationals, but you had that big gap. So when I really started to drive, the muscle cars are what people went after because that was the only horsepower, right? And yeah, I've always had an older car in the garage somewhere, and the newer cars have typically been Fords. So I had an 03 Mach 1. I went from that to a 2013 Boss 302, and I went from that car to I now have a 2022 Mach 1. I had a 2021, but I had a girl do the pit maneuver on me in the rain one time, and that car got totaled out.
You'll never guess, Greg, what kind of car took out Tony. Just take one guess at what you think would have. Just the car that always seems to be doing things wrong on the road.
Oh man, I don't know. Viper?
No. It's big Ultima energy.
Yeah, it was an Ultima. Yeah, an Ultima. It was raining, and I guess she hydroplaned, but it was a newer driver. And for some reason, when she hydroplaned, she thought the best course of action was full lock left. And her front axle broke on my rear axle, which also broke my rear axle, and just spun the car right into a guardrail, and that was it. So once again, I thank Ford because I hit a concrete barrier at probably around 40 miles an hour. I think it was 1 second from the impact till the barrier. But both my wife and I were able to walk away. Scary when all the airbags in the car go off and the whole car's just dust. But we were both able to walk away. We didn't have to go to the hospital. But yeah, that worked out. That's another deal. I paid $52,000 for that car new. The accident happened post-COVID. So when car prices were way, way up, and I was ready to fight the insurance company on the value of this car. And they came back to me and said, we're going to cut you a check for $73,500. Would that be okay? And I'm, okay. Yeah, I'm not going to fight that. I just took it. So, yeah, it's not often you make 20-some thousand dollars on a new car. But
Yeah.
I was able to replace that Mach 1 with a very similar Mach 1. But it's just one of those things that happens to me for some reason. I buy a car and have it for a few months, and I end up making money on it. Not intentionally. I'm not a flipper. It's just that's what happens.
I was going to say,
And you got video content.
Have you ever
What's
considered
that?
being a broker or something? You seem like you've.
No, I mean it's accidental. Things just happen like that. If I see a really good deal in a car, I can't walk away from it, so I just buy it. And if I have it for a few months and I look at the value of it and say, hey, this is worth way more than I paid for it, I just sell it and then buy something else.
So something like, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, what's the tinkerer in the garage right now? Because I know you sold the car that you had forever. So what's the old car?
I had a 70 Mach 1 for the better part of 20 years. And I really like that car, but that was that goes back to like my past. That was a red light to red light car. It had the lower gears in it. It was a 4-speed. It was a 351 Cleveland. Quick, relatively quick for the era car. But with if I want to go fast, I'm going to jump in the new Mach 1 that'll run circles around the old cars. But I like old cars. I like to mess with them. And the thought was, I really should find something that's not. I don't know if you've ever driven a 70 Mach 1, but the clutch is heavy. The gear shifter, you're rowing gears basically. First is into the dash, and second is back by your hip, and third is back into the dash. It's work. And I thought, I'd like to have something that just kind of cruise around. So I started looking for a 67, 68 Mustang because I've had at least 12 of those cars in my lifetime. I found a Survivor in all places, Ohio. I found a 39,000 mile 68 289 2-barrel automatic. It has the original paint on it, which is not easy to come across. And that's what it's more of a cruiser than it is a muscle car. It's quick enough, but it's easy to drive. So it's power steering, standard brakes that were converted to disc, which is nice. The dealer put dealer AC on it, and I have the unit, the compressor's still there. I'll replace all that stuff to get the AC working. But if I have a 289 2-barrel automatic with highway gears and air conditioning, I'll be set. I have an old car that I just get in and cruise around in. So that's what I have now. That's what I'm tinkering with now.
So the days of driving cross country in your 70 Mach 1 with no AC in summer, those are over.
Well, I drove across country in a 77 Maverick with no AC a couple of years back. So I went from here, and the goal was to get across the Golden Gate Bridge. I tried to do it in the 70 Mach 1 and didn't make it. I lost an axle bearing in Nebraska, and that held us up for a couple of days. And at that time, there was fires out in the Northwest. You really couldn't see. The road I wanted to go on was closed. But I went back in the Maverick and made it. So I made it all the way to the Golden Gate Bridge and back in a Maverick. And no AC was bad at times. Other times, it didn't matter. We hit the snow on Donner Pass, which is not something I was expecting. Probably should have, but didn't. But those days I don't know. We'll see. I might take this 68 somewhere just because me, Mike. That's how I am. So if someone says, "Hey, no one ever drove a 68 Mustang to this place," I may jump in and go.
So Greg, just so you know, well, this is going back about 10 years or so, but I drove from here down to Tony's place in Eastern PA, picked him up in a NC Miata, and we drove to Monterey in 4 days.
4 days. So that's the part that actually maybe kind of gives me a little bit.
And we swung by Iowa on the way too, because we went
as one does. Okay.
Yes. In a tornado, basically.
Mike reaches out to me and says, I want to take an old style Miata out to the new Miata release. I said, where is it? You were in Monterey. Is that right? Yeah.
I went to Laguna.
Yeah, I said, well, as long as we drop off at 80 and hit Route 50, like somewhere around Nevada, I'll be good with that. As long as I don't have to do 80 the entire time, because Route 80 is just, like through Nebraska. I think I drove through Nebraska. You fell asleep. And you woke up and said, "Hey, we're on the other side of Nebraska." I'm like, "Yeah."
Well, the Miata doesn't like going too fast either. It's the way the gearing is. But we dodged
It did okay
at night, and then that wasn't even the scariest. The worst was going on 50. We filled up in a town, and we had no miles reading on the distant when we rolled into the next gas station because of the gap between stations. But we survived.
Yeah, Route 50 is a gorgeous road. If anybody ever gets to drive the loneliest road in America, it is a gorgeous drive. And you go up mountains and down into valleys, and it's always that picture that you see out on the web that says, if you were on this road, how fast would you go? Because you can drop off a mountain pass and see for, I don't know, 100 miles to the next mountain, and it's just this long straight ribbon of blacktop. But it is just a gorgeous place to drive. So
Well,
I did that. I did that in the Maverick too. So
Yeah.
I jumped on 50, which was perfect for a Maverick that topped out at 70, when the speed limit on Route 80 is, 90. So 50 is way better.
What's the Maverick attraction? Just curious, because for what it's worth, my parents had Mavericks. I loved the Maverick. I really did.
So did my dad.
To be clear, we're talking about the 70s. But
70s Maverick. Yeah.
What's the attraction? I mean, I'm right there with you, but I'm just curious what
I wanted to drive something old across the country. That's really what I wanted. I wanted to drive something old. And once again, the Maverick was a cheap car. I picked it up for $3,500.
Yeah.
It was an automatic. It was a straight six. It was a 250 straight six.
Yeah.
And I thought that, if I just go over this thing a little bit before I go, I'm going to make it. The straight six I may not make it quickly, but I'm going to make it. And it was a cheap car. So that's why I bought it. It was probably too cheap when I picked it up. Once again, I got back and I went over the car. I put a new gas tank in and gas lines and did some work on the brakes and got the engine to I got a rebuilt carburetor for it and got it going. But I got back and put it out on Facebook Marketplace and just said, $5,490. And I'm just inundated with messages. And the guy said, "What's your price?" I said, $5,490. He goes, "Here you go." Just handed me cash and loaded it on a trailer, and away it went. And I know that guy loves that car, but there was no real attraction. It was a Ford, and I thought it was I trusted it. That's really what the attraction was. A straight six automatic. I trusted to get me there back.
Just two quick things, and we'll get back to your channel. Tony knows my dad pretty well from our rallies. You have to talk to him next summer, because that was a car he owned for many years when he and my mom, I think, first got married and when they owned the house. He had a 250 but manual Maverick. Was his daily driver to get to school. But back to
that was a common thing in that trip across the country. Is every time I stopped for gas, it's odd when you drive an old car like that. That was very common back in the day. It's gonna start conversations everywhere you go. Every hotel you pull into, every gas station you pull up to, every place you stop just to get out and stretch your legs. People are going to come up and look at it because it's something they don't see, every day. And it was neat.
It'd be like driving a 92 Cavalier Escort across country right now. You'd probably run into so many people like, "Hey, I used to own one of those."
If I find like an Escort GT cheap, I'll 87, 88, I'll buy it. I mean, I just will, because I had a few of those cars back in the day too. And
I even like the late 90s hatchback GTs. I love the styling of those.
Yeah, the only real issue with those cars, the oil filters between the firewall and the engine way up high. You got to really get your arm up in there to change the oil filter. But other than that, they're pretty solid cars. So the 1.9 4-cylinder, pretty decent vehicle.
Deviating from Fords for a second, I like to think our trip across that we were talking about got you ready for your wife's car, which I love and I want so bad if she's ever ready to sell it.
What, the Fiat?
Yeah, the Fiata.
She's never selling that car.
I know. I wouldn't either if I had one. It's like a Miata with a little turbo.
She loves that.
Awesome.
I tried to talk her into an MX-5, and she said, no, they make a frowny face, and I don't like them the way they look. And it was the time when Fiat was pulling the Spider out of the country. And I said, well, what about this? Because I just happened to see an article that said, hey, Fiat's pulling the Spider out of the country. They're no longer going to sell it here. So what about that? She goes, what's that? I said, well, it's basically the same vehicle, but it's got a Fiat engine in it. And we went to see one. She fell in love with it. But she had a very specific set of equipment list that she needed. And I ended up having to drive to Pensacola to pick it up. So that was another, grabbed a one-way rental from here, drove to Pensacola, went to a hotel, woke up the next morning, picked up the Fiata, and then drove it all the way back the next day. So I'm not opposed to driving if it's a good deal. Maybe that's why I find decent deals, because I look anywhere. That might have something to do with it. So my 2022 Mach 1 I picked up in Burke Bennett, Texas, which is kind of in the panhandle of Texas. But that had the equipment I wanted. But I flew down to pick that one up.
And it was white. So, all your
it's white.
Mustangs have to be white.
Right? Yeah, Mustangs should be white. So all my Mustangs are usually white.
So circling, I'm going to ask a question in a sec, but just I want to circle back to the website, the YouTube channel.
Sure.
You talk obviously more than just Mustangs. We've been talking a lot about Mustangs, but you have a different car that seems to be your theme each time. How much of those is it just stuff you know from decades of being around them, and how much do you have to research some more details on them?
Well, I know the Ford lineup pretty well. I mean, at least from 1965 to till now, right? I've got a pretty good grasp on that. But there are details. So I do research on every video I do. I just wrapped up a video on the third generation Mercury Capri, which is a car that was, if you were paying attention, you might have seen it, but it was a car that was built in Australia and then captive imported into the US. So I knew of them, but I didn't know a lot about them. So but I wanted to. And that's the nice thing about having this YouTube channel. As I do these videos, I always find something new that I didn't know. I always learn something as I'm putting it together. And, that car is no exception. A lot of the cars on the channel, cars I think I know everything about. Like I have a Torino video out there that took way, way too long to put together. I think it was like almost 50 hours of digging in to do the whole history of Torinos. But there's things I learned doing that video. And I've owned multiple Torinos over the years. So I had a 69 429 or 428 Cobra Jet. My first real muscle car was a 70 429 Super Cobra Jet Torino, and that car was quick. But you learn things as you go, and that's part of the fun of doing this YouTube channel. I get to learn things as I'm putting these videos together. I always find out something new. The hardest part is if you're doing your research on the web, there's a lot of conflicting information. So then you have to figure out what's the actual, especially in these older vehicles, what's the actual story. So sales literature is usually where I try to get my information, but that's not, back then, wasn't always accurate. So with the 70 Torino in the sales literature, it said the Boss 429 was an option. That was never built, that car. So yeah, that's the hardest thing is trying to nail down what's actual. I can tell you almost every video I make a mistake. There's something that's wrong. Mm-hmm. But the problem with YouTube is once you upload something, you have to live with it. So the only way to correct it is to pull it down. And if you do that, you lose all the views on it. It doesn't get shared as often. So yeah, there's usually one mistake that somebody that knows these cars way better than I do will point out that, hey, there was a UAW strike and that didn't happen, although it was supposed to. It never took place. So yeah, I get that in the comments section a good bit. Welcome
to automotive journalism.
Yeah, it happens with basically every video and review I do too. So don't worry.
Yeah. Well, it bothers me, but there's once, I don't know if you can go back and edit your stories, But
Mhm.
once a video drops on YouTube, that you're going to live with it. There's no way to
Yep.
retroactively either cut it out of the video or you just deal with it.
Yeah, I made some
So,
obvious mistakes in a video like 3 or 4 videos ago, and people are still commenting on it. There's nothing I can do about it because it's up there. But
yeah, I did a video on Jim Morrison's Shelby, and I was cutting the audio together, and I overlapped the 428, so it sounds like it says 420, and I get caught on that probably once a month at least. There's no 420 Cobra Jet in a 68 Shelby. I'm like, yeah, I know, it's a Thunderjet, but the O got cut out, or the 8 got cut off, and you just have to deal with it and move on.
Pretty cool. I'm curious, Tony, do you have any thoughts on the Ford Falcon? We talked about the Maverick, another maybe deep cut, perhaps underrated in the history. I don't know. What do you think of the Falcons going back?
I love the Falcons. I have a Falcon video. It's one of my more. Yeah, I think it's got 140,000 views.
Nice.
My brother-in-law has a Falcon. His is a 65. He got it when I was dating my now wife. So back in the early 80s, mid 80s, he bought that car. But Falcons are great cars. The thing that people don't talk about is the Falcon name went on in Australia for a long time after it left the States. I don't know why Ford doesn't bring that nameplate back. The old commercials with the Falcon coming in and landing on the guy's arm was kind of cool. It's a good nameplate. They should bring it back.
Careful what you wish for, though, Tony. It'll go on an electric SUV or something.
Oh, yeah, that'd be bad. I mean, that's being my age. I'm almost 60 now. It's depressing to drive by a Ford dealership and they're all SUVs and trucks, and there may be a couple of Mustangs, and that's it. I'd love to see a return of any car. I don't care what it is. Just another car. I've never been a fan of SUVs. I've owned a couple, but I kind of thought they were always the Swiss Army knife of vehicles. They can do everything, but they don't really do anything all that well. I could see it in climates that snow where you need four-wheel drive, but for a majority of buyers, an SUV is not necessary. And it's not necessarily the thing that does the best for what they're looking to accomplish. If you want to haul people, maybe get a minivan.
Oh, yeah. Minivan, all-wheel drive minivan's the ultimate car for a family, but people won't buy them because of the stigma.
They're not. At some point, minivans got to be uncool, and SUVs were somewhat cooler, and that's what everybody transitioned to. I don't know. We'll see. Things change. That's the only constant is things change. And I think SUVs will begin to fall out of favor when people figure out that there's other vehicles that could suit their needs maybe a little bit better than just a SUV.
Well, I think even more so you brought up about the cool is I'm younger than you. Greg and I are like the generation just after, and we grew up in wagons. All our parents owned wagons, so those became uncool. So everyone then bought minivans, and then their kids are like, well, this is uncool. So they're all buying SUVs, and they're like, our kids are going to be like, SUVs aren't cool. So yeah, it's all a circle. I have one question that you mentioned when the Falcon about your views. Nobody can ever figure out YouTube's algorithm. What video have you done where you're like, why is this getting so many views?
I have a video right now. I put a video out this weekend, and it was just kind of something I wondered about. It's a Ford Courier, which was the first small pickup by Ford. It was actually a Mazda. So, which the small pickups for Ford's kind of weird because Ford rebranded a Mazda, and then later Mazda rebranded the Ranger. But I wanted to dig into the Courier just to find out what's going on. And that's got almost 20,000 views this week. No idea that was going to happen. And I don't think anybody's going to figure out YouTube's algorithm. They're going to promote whatever gets a boost after the first 30 minutes. And if it doesn't get a boost after that, it just is how it is. So you can make the best video, edit everything perfectly, and no one watches it. And this is how it goes. I mean, I didn't expect the Falcon video to get that many views. I just wanted to learn about Falcons. So I put a video out there, and that video, it did nothing for 6 months. And then all of a sudden it just took off.
Yeah, that happens too sometimes. Like we'll have a car like this, or a comparison. This is going to be amazing. Nobody watches it. I just do a video for fun or because I have some time, and it blows up. So yeah, you never know.
You don't know. I mean, really, you're just throwing stuff at the wall. The thing is, for you guys, it's a profession, right? So for me, it's a hobby. So I really don't care if people watch it or don't watch it. And that's, yeah, I don't have sponsors. I'm never going to take a sponsor. I get asked all the time. I'm not interested. I'm not doing it really for the revenue. I'm doing it just to kind of, one, I wanted a record of me for my kids whenever I move on. And two, it's something I'm genuinely interested in. I want to stay connected to the automotive hobby. So it serves those purposes for me. But as far as, I mean, I guess you can make clickbait videos if you want to. But I don't think people will come back for that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I made a video about the Bronco too. It's a vehicle that I thought Ford released way too early, and it was dangerous when they put it out there. And I knew when I said that there's a lot of Bronco 2 people that love those vehicles. They're great off-road vehicle. Mm-hmm. It's just that if you're on the highway and you need to make an abrupt maneuver, not the best vehicle to be in, especially the two-wheel drive ones. So I made a video about that and pointed it out. I took a lot of flack for that, but you know, that's got a lot of views. So a lot of people watch that video.
People love controversy.
I guess if you want to get views, you need to be controversial, but then you have to live with that amongst your fan base, I guess. So that's the only thing I can think of that people will always watch. If it's tied to, I've done videos about Jim Morrison's car, did a video on the Batmobile. They got a lot of views. I met the guy that owned there was a 1968 Thunderbird that was owned by DeForest Kelley, who was the doctor on Star Trek. So he's Bones, right? And it was his car. He owned it for 15 years. I've tracked down the guy that had that car and did an interview with him. That got 100,000 views pretty quickly. So if it's a vehicle that's tied to somebody that has some celebrity, I think it does better. But you don't know. I did a video on Ferris Bueller's Day Off car because that was a Ford engine in that Ferrari from Ferris Bueller. Nobody watched it. So there's no recipe for that. It just, what happens.
So before we let go, Greg, do you have any last question or questions you want to ask him? I have one for him, but I'll let you go first.
You know, the Mustang has just been such a subject of maybe a little bit of controversy, the most recent one. Kind of looking forward. How do you feel about it? Do you own one? Like where do you land on the new one?
I mean, I don't dislike the new one. I think the Mustang, as the years go by, it's starting to get too pricey. And I don't know how Ford corrects that. I think part of that is, Ford wants to be profitable in every vehicle they make. I sold cars back in the 80s, and that was not the way they thought. So I sold cars for Ford back in 87 through 89, and then it was more about volume. So they like the Tempo is a vehicle that they lost money on pretty consistently, but they wanted to be number one in overall sales, and eventually they achieved that. I don't know that they don't, at least with the Mustang, they've got to look a little less at profitability and a little more at affordability and get to the point where the Mustang was always a great car because anybody could buy it. A young buyer out of college could buy that car. I don't know that at a 35 plus sticker for an EcoBoost, if that's really the recipe anymore. It seems like they're getting away from what they started with.
Yeah.
So I mean, I love to see the Mustang go on and on and on and on. But realistically, if the car gets to be too expensive for the average person to buy, that's just not going to happen. So yeah, I don't think they lost their edge as far as bang for buck, but they're getting there.
Yeah, the market's shrunk, so the price goes up because you're selling less, so you're not spreading the cost. But even in the last 5 years, the price for a GT, I can't believe the increase. I mean, selfishly, you Americans now know what us Canadians have always felt, because our V8s are always so much more up here, and that's sort of why they don't sell quite as many up here. But it's too bad because the latest Mustang, I've driven a couple. I'm not a Mustang fanatic, So I look at it at a different perspective, but it drives so well. It's probably my favorite driving Mustang I've ever driven in just performance. It's just so well ironed out. They kind of fixed some things I didn't like on the old one. But like you said, Tony, it's expensive. So not that many people are going to get to drive it. And then I know a lot of the Mustang community hate the looks, which I don't really mind.
I mean, I don't mind the looks. I don't think if you put a powerful V8 in a vehicle that can somewhat handle, which has been, what a Mustang's been for a long time, if it's priced right. The Mustang was always you go back to the 80s and the 90s, the Mustang was always the best bang for your buck. And you could buy a V8 powered car that handled okay and looked somewhat sporty, and it was cheaper than any other performance car out there. People would say, well, the BMW is a better performing car. Well, yeah, it is, but it's twice the price. We're not there anymore. I mean, the V8 Mustangs now are priced. You can go out and buy a BMW for what you pay for a Mustang GT, and they're getting away from where they need to be successful. I don't know why that is, but it just is. They're getting too pricey.
It's like they flipped because now the Mustang will outrun a BMW, but it now costs more.
Yeah, that shouldn't be, right? I mean, that's not formula. So I sold GTs in the 80s, and they were 13, 14 grand, and a Z28 was 18. And if you wanted a BMW, it was going to be north of 20. So the argument always was that, hey, if you want a car that is a decent performance car, it's half the cost of anything else out there, and you should buy it. And a lot of people did, but now we're getting away from that. So yeah, my Boss Mustang in 2013 was 40 grand, and that was a limited edition. You look at a Dark Horse now, it's 60 and up, and that's way higher. So
you're not getting a huge performance increase either. Like, it's not like it's a 700 something horsepower Shelby GT500. I can't even imagine what the GT500 is going to cost when that comes back.
No, I mean, it's got to be north of 100, right? And then you're going to limit no one's going to buy that, unless you're in the top 5% income earners. You're not going to buy a muscle car for $100,000. It's just not going to. They're not going to sell that. So it's unfortunate to see, but I think Ford's got to figure out a way to make the Mustang an affordable car for the masses, again, and then they'll sell. But if they don't do that, if you buy a Mustang for the same price you can buy an F-150, there's a problem. And that's kind of where I see the Mustang at right now, which is unfortunate, but that's the way things are.
There's not really any competition either, no Camaro, no Challenger. So it's like, well, why be really competitive on price when they don't really have to?
Well,
it's more of a straw man's argument. Let me put it that way. But
right. I guess it depends where they want to be at. If they're only looking at profitability, then sure, that would make sense. But it's at some point, if you're only looking at profitability, you lose popularity and the market segment shrinks. And that's what's happening to all the OEMs. I guess the Charger now is going to get the Hemi again, is the rumor.
Yeah, they haven't said it, but I can't imagine it doesn't. Which will probably be less powerful than the turbo inline six, but it will be the Hemi, and it'll be the Hemi.
It'll sell again.
Go for it.
Yeah. The people that buy the Chryslers are going to want a Hemi. That's just what they're going to want. So if they put that back in there, then the Mustang will have a little competition. We'll see. I don't know that competition necessarily changes the pricing structure for Ford, but it needs to be a car that can be bought by anybody. When it first came out, it was considered a secretary's car, but anybody could buy a Mustang back in the 60s. You didn't need to be a top wage earner to do it, and that's where we're at right now. So it's unfortunate, but we'll see. I hopefully they can turn things around and realize what's going on and make it a popular car again.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, Tony. Just very quick before we let you go, what is the one Ford you have yet to buy that you want to?
The one Ford I have yet to buy that I want to? I don't know. I mean, really, I've had so many of them. I'd like to have the last generation GT500, but it's just come down to price for me. Why I haven't done it, why I haven't pulled the trigger on it. I'd like to have one of those cars. The other problem is the gas mileage is atrocious, and they still have that 15-gallon tank, and I like to drive long distances, so that is another reason that kept me away. That might be the one. But really, I mean, if I go out of my house tomorrow and stumble across something that's too good a deal, I'm just going to buy it. And that's what happens. So if I happen to see an '89 Escort GT with low miles on it that somebody put away and it's $5,000, I'm going to get that. So my last SVO was like that. Hey, there's an SVO in Marketplace with low miles on it, and it's cheap. Well, okay. So we'll see. So I guess the next Ford I'd want to have is the one that is just too good a bargain to walk away from.
That's a good philosophy. Well, thanks for joining us, Tony, again. And we will definitely have you back on down the road. What is the name of your channel for people to check you out?
It's Tony's Fords and Mustangs. And you can just type in Tony's Fords and Mustangs in any search engine and you'll find me.
All right. Sounds great. Well, thanks for coming on.
Thanks, guys. Good talking to you.
All right, welcome back. We once again have Colum Wood joining us. Colum, what are the news and rumors this week in Formula One?
Howdy, Mike. Good to be on. It seems like sometimes it's the what's old is new again, right? We're still looking at this whole, the rumors around George Russell, Max Verstappen, et cetera, right? So I think maybe the most important thing, though, is at least as we record this, there's still no George Russell contract, right? Which is like that they it doesn't matter what they're talking about, right? Like all the rumors, and it's funny. Like I read, the clauses about apparently like Max's exit clause is, if he's fourth or lower by the Hungary race, blah blah blah. Like I think ultimately, if they really want to make a move, they'll make a move. Like all that's, they'll find a way to, make the money work or the contracts to get paid out. I just, that's still very peculiar that George is still just sitting there with no sort of specific future, right? Like that's
right. Yeah, and he was like the future of Mercedes, and then just like that, they're like, nope, because Max is dangling, and 1 week he's going there for sure, and this week I've been hearing he's not going for sure, and is the deal's off. But I think what Mercedes is doing, they're hedging their bets everywhere.
Sure,
they're just waiting to see if Max jumps, and if he does, then they can get him, and if he doesn't, then they sign George. The problem is if George jumps first and Max hasn't come, then what do you do?
Yeah, right. And then they got to find somebody else to bring in. Then they'd have like two rookies, or bring back Bottas.
George to Cadillac confirmed. Sorry, Cadillac.
Maybe yeah, I know that's a good. Again, for people who are listening, they can't see it, but an awesomely terrible AI generated image that says Cadillac on it instead of Cadillac, even though I specifically asked is right Cadillac. But before we even get there, there's an interesting. So one of the other rumors I've read is that so Toto Wolff had some conversations with Flavio Briatore, I guess, recently. It was seen that they were chatting, which they could just be chatting about like the weather for all we know. But sort of there's a rumor brewing that it could be that Mercedes might actually keep George and bring on Max, and then have those two with Antonelli going sort of temporarily on loan to Alpine. Right. And they give Alpine some monetary benefits to make this happen or whatever. So that's an interesting rumor. I will add that. So just this morning, I saw during all the sort of Spa buildup that Martin Brundle was interviewing Toto Wolff, and he basically, asked about this possibility. And he said, Toto Wolff said something. He goes, but obviously you have a Russell Verstappen lineup. He goes, that's Prost Senna, I guess. So Prost Senna was, on a team, did not go over very well. So I think Toto's sort of admitting there that, like, sure, we could do that, but we're just might as well just start chopping off our own arms while we're at it, right?
Yeah, Kimi would be real ecstatic about this proposition. Oh, I get to go to Alpine for a while. And for Prost Senna, you have to have the best car by a mile, and Mercedes doesn't. So then when they aren't both winning all the time, then that adds more problems.
It does. So that's the one. It's ongoing. Maybe again by the time Spa's over, we'll have some more clarity. But I feel like free practice one's already happened. And by the time we're recording this, if they were going to announce any contracts, I think they would have done it before any of the racing happens, right? Like they would do it on like the Thursday press day or something. So I think we're waiting until over the summer.
I assume nothing's happening till the break.
Yeah.
Because there's this race and there's one more, right? And then there's the break.
No, there's this race, and then it's a weird. It's like we go to Hungary and then maybe you're right. I don't know why
I'm pretty sure there wasn't just one. I'm pretty sure there's two.
So yes, you're right. It's this weekend is Belgium, and then next weekend is Hungary, and then we've got the break until we go to the Dutch GP the end of August. So, and
that's when you drop the contract at the start of the break, so people have 3 weeks to kind of get over it before the racing starts again.
Yeah, exactly. So onto your funny Cadillac thing here. I sent this, over because there's sort of an interesting story in Auto, Motor und Sport, the good German motorsports car magazine, talking all about what sort of Cadillac has been, I guess, prepping in the background and doing stuff. So apparently they're obviously, we've sort of kept tabs hiring people and doing this stuff. But I guess they're planning after the summer break, they'll do their first on-track testing with a 2023 Ferrari car. What's interesting is that apparently they've been doing like virtual testing ever since the Spanish GP. And that means like they have teams that like they basically have a whole, control room of people, and they set up like simulations within the real Formula One race. And they try and like, look, if this happened, what would we do with our car? Where do we go? Whatever. Funny enough, in this article, they said that, I'll just read this point blank. It says, Cadillac experienced a curious mishap during the first test run. The car, which does not even exist, suddenly found itself in pole position. As an insider recounts with amusement, we misjudged the grip of the tires and entered it incorrectly into the program. So, and then they realized they screwed up because there was no way that their brand new car was going to be on pole. So I thought that was funny. A little, better to learn it now, right, than week one. So,
and I guess they're using the old Ferrari, even though it'll be nothing like the new car, probably just to test what the engine is like and get some hands on playing and driving the car. So I wonder who will be driving it. That'll be interesting.
That is a great point, right? Like we will see then who are the people out. We'll keep tabs on that, and that's got to be like, I imagine that's, I don't know where they'll do it. Right? Are they going to do it at Ferrari test facility? That seems the most likely.
Could go to Milford, their own backyard, so you can see.
That would be smart. Although we've seen spy photos from Milford before, guys flying helicopters and drones and all kinds of stuff to get spy photos. So, Mark will get in the car and he'll just drive it himself. Perfect. Yeah,
he's a very hands-on guy.
He is a hands-on guy. So but I think that's interesting to see what's going on. Yeah, that's a photo from earlier that I was talking about. Just the whole.
I got the photos backwards.
Yeah, that's all right. The whole George and Kimi rivalry. We'll see. So it looks like Spa's always a good race, good chance for rain. They're predicting a high probability of rain. Although it's weird, it's a sprint race, and I can't recall. Maybe we have had sprint races here before. It just seems like such a strange place to have a sprint race because it's such a long lap.
It's like 2 laps. Okay,
exactly. Yeah, so I find that strange. I prefer like a shorter track sprint race, like a Sao Paulo or something, right? Like that to me makes more sense. You just get a lot more laps in and sort of more potential for things. So
the opposite could be, because if something happens, you have a long way to get around, and if they need to do a pit stop, it's going to be harder to gauge where to go. You can't just pick a window. You got to do this lap or that lap, and and that's it.
Yeah, but Spa's always great. So
and it'll rain. If not today, tomorrow, or Sunday, or all 3 days, or off and on every day. Spa's never dry.
No, it isn't.
No. All right. Well, when people hear this, we'll have known who won that. But it'll be interesting to see if Norris closes the gap more on Piastri, or if Piastri starts opening it back up. But I mean, theoretically, they can almost be on top of each other by the end of this race. It'd be awesome if they were like within a point going into the summer break, because 3 weeks would just stew over that for the two of them in the team.
Yeah, it makes some good racing. Hopefully they get some wheels banging as we get in.
Speaking of Senna and Prost, not saying they're at that level, but this sort of thing where you have two pretty equal drivers and easily the best cars, so anything can happen.
We've had one collision already. It won't be the last, I'm sure. So,
but that was, I agree, especially if it's close towards the end. That was just Norris and even said like doing something he shouldn't have. We haven't had one of those where they both went in aggressive and then they're yelling at each other, but that may still come.
Oh yeah, I predict it will.
All right, well, thanks for joining us, Colum. We will have you back next week, and we will talk about this week's race and the last one before the break, and maybe some contracts will have been announced, but I doubt it.
I'm same.
All right, see you then.
Thanks. See ya.
All right, so that just about wraps things up on the Auto Guide Show, brought to you by eBay Motors. Thanks for joining me, Greg, to talk with Tony. It's been a different kind of episode, but a lot of fun. So next week, Kyle and I will be in a pair of Mustangs. I don't want to give too much away, but one has a roof, one has a roof that goes down, one has a V8, and one has half the cylinders. So it should be interesting. There's also a Corolla Cross Hybrid that will be around, and Kyle's also going on a first drive of the refreshed Palisade. This week, the reason he's not here is he's on vacation, so no cars for him. But like you said last week, he is driving a diesel pickup truck across the east coast of Canada, and I have been driving the WRX TS, which I'm a sucker for WRXs, so surprise, surprise as to what I think of this car.
Pretty cool. That's a lot of a wide variety of different metal. Let's see, I'm in a Toyota 4Runner TRD Pro, which I'd love to talk about coming up. It's so much fun. It's just people think it's like this off-road tank, which it is. So I'm having a great time in that. And I just got out of a Range Rover Sport plug-in hybrid. So that's a different one too. So
well, I hope you got the TRD in some mud, because that's where it excels. So I look forward to hearing your thoughts on it.
It's a good time. It's a good time.
All right. Well, thanks again for listening, and we will see you next week. Picture this. You're halfway through a DIY car fix, tools scattered everywhere, and boom, you realize you're missing a part. It's okay, because you know whatever it is, it's on eBay. They've got everything: brakes, headlights, cold air intakes, whatever you need, and it's guaranteed to fit, which means no more crossing your fingers and hoping you order the right thing. All the parts you need at the prices you'll love, guaranteed fit every time. eBay, things people love.